Welcome to the 2009 December event of Mobile Monday Toronto here at Mars. We're here with Tony Lacavera, and he's the CEO of Globalive, and he's here to talk about Wind Mobile. And as everyone knows, Wind Mobile is one of the new licensees that's entering in market and are waiting for a decision from the CRTC to launch in market. We wanted to get Tony's opinion on a couple of questions. So what we'd like to know, or the community would like to know initially, Tony, is what's at stake in terms of a significant delay to the Wind Mobile team, and what's at stake?
Yeah, Jim, thank you. Well, clearly we see ourselves as the first real competition in wireless in Canada in over a decade now. We're the first really to come to market in over a decade with a very strong financing package, experience in the telecommunications business. We've started Globalive 10 years ago. I started it. We've been building it up over the last 10 years. We've got a national customer base, operations across the country. So we're positioned really well to enter the wireless market, building on the platform we already have created over the past 10 years successfully. I think the other new entrants are some very good teams. There's some good operators, but they're pure startups. They don't have the spectrum coverage that we've got. They're not nearly as well positioned to make a national entry and to build really sustainable long-term competition to bring Canadians new choice. So, long story short, choice is on the line here for Canadians, and we feel like we're the first real choice.
Excellent. Well, we're really looking forward to hearing more about that later. I think Alex wanted to ask a couple of questions as well.
Yeah, actually, Tony, a couple of people from the community had some really good questions. One of the questions they had was specifically around what would Wind do differently in the context of competition in Canada with Bell, Rogers, and Telus. Everyone knows the type of programs they put out for products and services. What will Wind do, and then what will you specifically offer at launch?
As you know, we started the Wireless Soapbox initiative, reaching out to the community to look for input on how we can make Canada's next great wireless company. So we're thrilled, actually, that conversation is continuing on windmobile.ca. What we're going to do differently, it starts really with the customer experience, and that's quite a cliche, so let me expand quickly on that. What's happened in Canada is because of the lack of competition, I believe, and because there's really, the market is dominated by three very large companies, and all of the flanker brands they have are owned by those three large companies. There really isn't that much competition in the market, and those companies have reached an equilibrium in market share, and they no longer have a real motivation to provide a level of service to customers that really makes a difference and makes customers feel appreciated. We're starting with 0 customers today. We're a pure startup in wireless. Yes, we do have other operations, but we recognize that we're a startup in wireless. Engaging Canadians in a positive end-to-end customer experience is critical to our success. So we've hired from the ground up. We built the brand, Wind, the power of conversation all about having an ongoing conversation with Canadians. We're wide open and looking forward, in fact, soliciting feedback from Canadians on what we can be doing better, and obviously we're not going to be perfect, and obviously we see this as an ongoing process, but the main thing is engaging Canadians in a true customer experience where they know and truly believe, and rightfully so, that their business really matters to us. And then obviously sustaining that. So it's not going to be something we can just do quickly and walk away from it. We've got to continue to invest that way and make a difference. I think secondly, what we've heard loud and clear from Canadians is simplicity. It's so complicated right now, the wireless experience. I don't really understand that the technology is changing all the time. Contracts this, the contract is more onerous than my car lease. It's such a laborious and difficult experience. We're looking for simplicity, guys. We want to get this down to something where the experience really should be like shopping for other, even shopping for other electronics that are complicated is easier. Shopping for a digital camera, shopping for a Wii or a PlayStation 3 in the games, and those technology. Why is mobile so much more complicated? It really doesn't make any sense. So we need to focus on simplicity, and that obviously ties into the customer experience. If we've got a very complex, difficult offering to understand, obviously the customer experience is going to be eroded. So those are really the two big things we see doing that. And obviously, from my standpoint personally, I want to maintain a culture of innovation. We're very proud of the community we've built at Globalive and now at Wind Mobile. Maintain that community of great people that are highly energized, focused on making a difference in the market, and of course that entrepreneurial spirit that's made the company successful against much bigger players for so long.
Those are very good points, and I think from Jim and my perspective, from the events that we've held here since actually 2006, one of the things that people have said is that Canada seems to be lagging in innovation, and you really do have a lot of support behind you in terms of that in itself, outside of the fact that the customer service is a big issue. You go and read the articles about the ruling, et cetera, and what you're up against. The feedback from the audience is quite simple. They want a better experience, better pricing, more competition, and they want to see Canada on the forefront. Jim?
I was going to say, this also marks a one-year anniversary of us launching the chapter in Mars, and you were the inaugural speaker here at Mars, and you pulled out a huge crowd. And you know, from what we've seen registration-wise as well, this is our biggest event ever. So we have to really take some time to thank you for that. We really appreciate the support for the community, and I think it's going to be a fantastic session. We're going to have a lot of really good questions from people. So hopefully you won't shy away from anything.
You know I won't, Jim. And look, the reality is, I think what you guys are doing is very important. The point of innovation in Canada is not, we've talked about this, what you guys are doing is very important. There isn't enough innovation in Canada. There isn't that risk-oriented, risk-taking culture, and we've got to promote that. But also what you guys are doing in terms of an industry forum, I think is so important. Making wireless, providing a platform for the wireless industry, and what you're doing, I think, is going to, already is, and is going to make a big difference.
Great. Well, we appreciate that.
Thanks, Tony.
My pleasure.
And good luck over the next few days.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's going to be exciting.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out to our final Mobile Monday of 2009. And we have a one-year update from Tony Lacavera and Globalive. If people remember, he spoke last year at our initial launch of the MobileMonday Toronto series here at Mars. So we're thrilled to have him back and give us an update on what's going on in market with regards to launch, et cetera. And as everyone is aware, over the last 6 weeks, it's been a real roller coaster as far as understanding what's happening with Wind Mobile. Hopefully everyone has a drink. The bar's outside, of course. You can bring your drinks inside here if you'd like. I'd like to thank the Mars team for their support in 2009, and Alex, the other co-founder, and Dal, he's there, and Joel's here in the front. We couldn't really do this without the Mars team. They put a lot of time and effort into helping us put together really successful events, and we've done 9 events this year, and it's been pretty substantial from a planning perspective. So I'd like to thank Janet and Wendy and Peter and Alan, also Andrea, the AV team, Peter and Brad. There's also Jeff and Ann on the camera there, and hopefully people have taken the time to look at the video series that we've been producing since the September event, and we've done 3 videos. They're all amazing quality in HD, so hats off to Jeff and Ann for doing that. I'd like to also thank the sponsors for the ongoing events, of course, MarketWire and Jolin from MarketWire up front there. Also the CWTA for their support, and Doondane Multimedia for helping us relaunch our website. I'd also like to give special thanks to the TAL Group, a resource and staffing company that is actually the sponsor of this event. And I think David is here in the front. Dave, you want to stand up and give a wave? Or? So I think Andrew's here as well, Andrew from TAL Group. And if anyone has met Dave or Andrew, they're really great guys to work with, so certainly introduce yourself to them later. And their whole theme, of course, is a focus around high-tech and mobile and resource requirements and staffing in that area. And it's pretty well aligned with what our discussion will probably be about tonight, and Tony will certainly reflect on that. It's the creation of jobs, and there's certainly been a lot of press with regards to the number of people that Wind Mobile has hired. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's Momo Toronto, and if you want to tweet about the event, it's #MomoTO, so do that. For people that didn't register, that want to leave their card with us, and we can put you on the mailing list, Jolin in the front here and Dal, they can take your business card and we can put you on the mailing list so we can tell you about our next event in February of 2010. So This event marks a one-year anniversary not only of the chapter being here at Mars, but also the fact that Tony helped us launch the chapter here. How many people were here in December of last year to hear Tony speak? Okay, that's a good number, but we have a lot of new faces, and it seems to be typical for a lot of our events. We typically get around a 50% new attendee ratio, so it's actually quite substantial. Since the time that Tony spoke in December of 2008, a lot has happened in the market. The Wind Mobile team has ramped up under Tony's leadership and his CEO, Ken Campbell, and they've put together a really good team as a new entrant in market. As everyone knows, as I said, over the last 6 weeks, it's been a little bit of an up and down time for Wind. And what we're hoping is that Tony can tell us a little bit more about the last year, his experiences, what's been going on in market. He'd love to hear questions from the audience. So we have 2 microphones set up right in the aisles over there. And Tony doesn't shy away from questions, tough ones, easy ones, so just throw them at him. He asked for us specifically to say that. So after Tony speaks for a few minutes, we'll do the questions, so feel free to ask the questions then. Before Tony gets up, we'll just tell you a little bit more about him. He's the chairman and CEO of Globalive Communications and also the chairman of Wind Mobile. He founded Globalive in 1998, offering a host of innovative telecommunications solutions in market to a wide range of clients, from enterprises to consumers to hospitality companies. Among the companies that are owned under the Globalive banner, there's Yak Communications, there's One Connect Services, there's Conopco Hospitality Telecom, Globalive Carrier Services, and they've also put a significant amount of effort behind their charitable initiative, which is called the Shamba Foundation. They provide service to over 1 million Canadians under the Yak brand, and they serve over 3,000 hotels and hospitals in over 30 countries with Conopco, and they service 5,000 small and medium-sized customers. So we'd like to give a warm welcome to Tony Lacavera from Globalive.
All right, thank you, Jim. It's good to be back. Definitely a lot happening in Globalive's world over the past year. I'm a very informal speaker, so please interrupt any time with, as Jim said, easy or difficult questions. I can sort of guess what the difficult questions will be about. But before I take any of them, is there anyone in the room from the CRTC? Because I can, I have to be very careful about that. No, I'm just joking. If there's anyone from the CRTC here, I didn't mean to make you feel not welcome. So Globalive, just a little bit about the company, and then we can talk about Wind Mobile and where we see mobile going in Canada and what we see the opportunity as. Just very quickly about myself. I've spent a lot of time kind of diversifying myself as an entrepreneur. I'm an engineer by education, and I'm very big in terms of community involvement. So I founded something called the Shamba Foundation, which is a charity that's set up to support other charities, particularly smaller charities that have a difficult time fundraising. And what we do is assist those charities in getting organized and raising funds and doing fundraisers. So it's been a great success, and we've raised several hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for charities for the past several years. I'm a producer as well. I really enjoy theater, and I currently have a show running in London in the West End called Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. It's a Tennessee Williams remake. It has some great actors in it, including James Earl Jones, the legendary voice of Darth Vader. And I'm doing a very interesting show right now called Textuality, which is a romantic comedy about how people have relationships on mobile. So it's texting, BBM, and it's a very, very funny movie actually about how people, maintain multiple relationships while they're dating on mobile. So that's coming out soon. And I'm an investor in a bunch of different businesses here and across Canada. For my personal time, I'm a pilot, and I love taking a plane up and just flying around and enjoying the sights. These are the brands, as Jim mentioned, that we have under the Globalive banner. Wind is the most recent addition. We're very proud of what we've done so far with Wind, and the network is ready to go. We can talk about that later, but we're ready to launch services here in Canada and make a real difference in wireless in Canada. I think Jim talked about Globalive. I'm not going to spend any more time on that actually now. So why did we get into wireless? For those of you who were here last year, this slide may look familiar. I made some kind of minor changes to it, but this slide has been the one slide I showed to everyone I talked to on wireless in Canada, because there is this ongoing debate about is wireless competitive in Canada or not. And of course the incumbents would continue to say that there are 7, 8 brands. They never say that they own all those brands. But there are 7 or 8 brands in the market, and it's intensely competitive. This is the one slide that sums up why I disagree with the incumbent position on that, and why I think Canadians really need a new choice, a real actual choice. So what this shows is market share by province. And Bell is the purple, TELUS red, Rogers light blue, and then there's other. And other is relevant in Saskatchewan and Manitoba because SaskTel and MTS Allstream have a very large market share in those markets. So the point of this slide is to really demonstrate that what's actually going on in Canada is that there are a series of provincial duopolies at work. And pricing is totally stabilized. There's activity in pricing, activity and volatility in subscribers amongst the flanker brands, which obviously aggregate up into the incumbent market share, since all the flankers are owned 100% by the incumbents. And what has happened is a perfect equilibrium, in my opinion, has been reached between Bell, TELUS, and Rogers, where in British Columbia and Alberta you have TELUS and Rogers with 90%-ish market share. And in Ontario and Quebec, you have Bell and Rogers with 80% plus market share. And so there's a significant disincentive for Bell to be more aggressive in the West. Of course, TELUS would respond and be more aggressive in the East, and of course, vice versa. So the reciprocal would apply. So what's happened is everyone sort of just kind of settled. And market share increments are very small now. And the gross adds are really coming on an equally distributed basis largely. Rogers has pulled ahead with iPhone and everything initially, recently. But basically everyone's kind of moving ahead with gradually adding on subscribers at a pace obviously far behind the rest of the developed world, most of the world. And, and of course that's allowed margins to continue to escalate over time. And we all know the stats and how high the pricing is and how low the penetration is, and the lack of access to handsets, lack of flexibility, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I believe that the root of all of our problems are in this slide here, and we need to get action going so that there are at least 3 carriers. Obviously, I'd love there to be Wind, but we need there to be at least 3 carriers in any given urban center, small or large, because I know there's a lot of talk about, well, it's intensely competitive in Toronto, intensely competitive in Vancouver. I know, we could talk a lot about that. But what about in Winnipeg? I know maybe no one here is from Winnipeg, but look what's going on in Manitoba. MTS completely dominates the market, and Rogers has has a bit of market share there. In Saskatchewan, SaskTel completely dominates the market. So we have spectrum in both those provinces, and we intend to compete in those provinces. And in British Columbia and Alberta, 90% market share is split nicely between TELUS and Rogers. And again, Bell doesn't want to be aggressive, because if Bell gets aggressive in British Columbia, they would definitely gain market share. They're sitting at 10%. The Bell marketing machine, they can definitely throw dollars at it and gain market share there easily, because the odds are they've got 90% untapped. But if they did that, would, in my opinion, that would quickly elicit a response from TELUS and or Rogers or some combination, mainly TELUS in the East. Any questions about that slide? I love this slide. Hi. Yeah, we've made some tweaks to it. As I said, it's not exactly the same slide I had left last year, but basically they've reached an equilibrium. Rogers is sort of pulling away. So the data that went into the slide is about 6, maybe 8 months old now. But it's not, yeah. Is there a, yeah. Sorry, yeah. That is now 2008. All right. So here's where we were. We started this thing called Wireless Soapbox. When we first looked at getting into wireless, we reached out to Canadians and said, hey, what would you like to see in wireless? Because one of the things that I noticed personally when I thought about getting into the business is, as a consumer, because obviously I'm using wireless, I was a Fido customer. Actually, if you go way back to my first cell phone was actually a Norwegian phone. And if anyone may remember Norwegian, I just saw someone from Norwegian here this evening. It reminded me of thinking my first mobile phone was actually from a company called Norwegian, which was a microcell reseller. There was a CLEC that never was successful, but they were in the early days of microcell, and I had that phone. And I remember from the first experience, then I was a consumer. I just started Globalive. I had no credit. I was a student, actually. I think it was in 1998. I just started Canopco, and I had no money. I had borrowed $200,000 to start Canopco. Ultimately, it became Globalive. So I had no money, no credit, and if anything, I was a very bad credit. So I did that, and had a very. Of course, I was treated like I think many Canadians are treated when they go to get a mobile phone. And that's being a low-end consumer. Obviously over the years as my business has grown, I've become a bigger and bigger user and consumer of mobile, so I've got a lot of first-hand experience. And the thing I noticed that's lacking the most, in my opinion, is basically a real customer engagement, a real interaction with the customer on a personal level. Now, obviously, this is very big businesses. The incumbents run very good businesses that are large. So, obviously, personal experience. Well, what do you really mean? It's very difficult. Even with Yak Communications, we have a hard time with a lot less customers than the incumbents have in wireless. So, to a degree that's reasonable for your business, how do you make the customer? How do you engage the customer? And that's what was the premise of Wireless Soapbox, is we're basically reaching out to people, reaching out to customers, prospects, customers, and when they talk to us, we're talking to them like they're human beings, and getting their input as to how we can make a great company. So we got a tremendous response on Wireless Soapbox. We then continued that conversation on winmobile.ca, and we're continuing to have, and our plan is to continue to have a dialogue with Canadians for the life cycle, for the history of wind. We want basically to be in a continuous dialogue with Canadians, because of course the requirements in the marketplace are going to evolve, and there's no better way to know what people are looking for than to just to talk to them, and not market research surveys and stuff like that, not structured things where, I'm sure we've all been, many people here have been called at home to answer a survey or fill out a survey online. It's not the same kind of interaction where you can go on and post what you think about an experience, a single experience or many experiences or ideas for new products. So that dialogue is open to all Canadians, and we're right there on it, including myself, looking at it. So I think that's the other important part, is that we have to, once we get this input, we have to do something with it. So where are we now? So I just because I know there's going to be questions about this, and I know it's just a very heated debate. How did we get to where we are today? So a snapshot of the regulatory situation. In 2008, the government set aside the frequencies, AWS frequencies, in the auction so that new entrants could come in. So for those of you that weren't familiar with that, is basically there was a comprehensive kind of assessment done by Industry Canada and industry players. Including the incumbents, everyone, mainly everyone participated, and it was ultimately decided that there would be a set-aside in this auction. So what that meant is players like myself, who would have had no chance to participate in the auction without the set-aside, mainly because history has shown us from the 2001 auction, the prices went right out of sight when there was when the incumbents could bid on all the frequencies. So Globalive was successful in that auction. As many of you know, I really went around the world, literally, looking for financing for this project, because I did start domestically, and I quickly realized there was no way we were going to take a real run at wireless in Canada with just domestic financing. It's just not possible. At least I couldn't do it, to get the kind of backing you need to really make a structural run at, going back to my earlier slide on the local duopolies, to make a structural run at the market. You know, an attempt to restructure the market to be more in line with other developed countries, developing countries, more in line with the rest of the world. You need to be able to go the distance, and I believe we're the only new entrant that has the financing to do that. So we received Industry Canada approval. We've moved ahead and built the network, and then the CRTC conducted the first ever public review of a telecom company. They do public reviews. So there are two reviews: the Industry Canada review, control and ownership review. We passed that, got the licenses, moved to the CRTC review. They did the first ever public review of a telecom company. As I say, they regularly review publicly broadcasting companies. So they did the first ever public review of a telecom company, and they decided that the company was not controlled enough by Canadians, which in this case really is myself, and there was too much foreign influence. So obviously there's many people saying the CRTC had no choice but to rule against us. My opinion, and the reality is actually, well, my opinion is that their company is obviously not foreign controlled. Obviously my position is it's controlled by Canadians. But incrementally, the Commission, many people say that it's a purely legal test. And this is one of the things message I want to get out tonight, is that in fact it's a very subjective test. So we passed all the legal tests, as we did with Industry Canada, and that's why we got their approval. And then there's this test called control in fact. And control in fact is a holistic and subjective assessment of the foreign influence. So it's like looking at all these levers and all these facts, and on the whole, is the company controlled by Canadians or not? That is actually where the Commission differed from Industry Canada. Industry Canada said, on the whole, this company is controlled in fact by Canadians, and the Commission said, no, on the whole, this company is controlled by foreigners. So that's what the essence of the debate. So we're out there, obviously, not being very shy about expressing our opinion. I think the reality is that we're all consumers. All of us here are consumers of wireless. So everybody that I talk to has some kind of experience to share. It's not necessarily the most positive experience. Everyone has a story about something that's happened to them, including, by the way, people that have worked or do work for the incumbents. I mean, again, there are challenges with running a large company. So, and a company, as I said earlier, as small as Yak Communications, we have the same kind of complexity. Even we have 1 million customers, and they have 6, 7, 8 million customers. So, but that all being said, there's no reason why the experience is so difficult for Canadians in wireless, and why overwhelmingly Canadians feel like they're being overcharged, feel like they're not getting great service, feel like they have a lack of features and flexibility, a lack of services. I have this quick video, if you can bear with me, that I think tells the whole story of what's going on in wireless in Canada. Can you guys roll that, please?
$1 hot dog. $5.50, please.
I thought you said it was $1.
No, $1 is just a naked wiener. Bun fee $1, napkin, condiment $1.50 plus my time.
$5.25 per hot dog? No.
Okay, what I'll do, I will just give you the hot dog and I'll keep the bun back. Okay. And I need the napkin back as well, okay? You see, if I put the real price, I don't get any customers.
Canadians want change. In fact, according to the Better Business Bureau, cell phone companies are the #1 most complained about industry in Canada. Go to winmobile.ca for more information and tell us how you feel.
Awesome. So I think that it's great. What we did, actually, just give me a quick second. I'm just going to talk about this video before you guys run this one, okay? This is what we decided to do. So many of you may know that after the CRTC decision, we were ready to launch services in Canada. And so after the CRTC decision, now we have all this, stores, contact center staff, obviously the office employees. So there's almost 800 people, ready to go. And obviously, we don't want to give up, or at least I certainly don't want to give up. And my partners, fortunately, my investors don't want to give up. So we have all these people, so we're keeping everyone on. So what we decided to do is have everyone come up with ideas, in which they all did on their own, come up with ideas on how we can participate in the community. And it's been an amazing, actually, experience. And actually, I mean, not that I think you could ever sell this as a business plan, but culturally, for wind, we are so much stronger now that everyone together has gone out and done all kinds of different things in the community. We are so much stronger culturally, and we are going to emerge so much stronger a competitor. Because now, again, we wouldn't have done it, and it's not a business plan you could sell to investors. Say, hey, why don't we get 800 people together and do some charity work? But we are out in the market, out in the community, doing all sorts of things for the community, all like across the gambit. And you'll see in this quick video. But the point is that we've had an incredible win culturally for the company that obviously we didn't anticipate having, and it's been amazing actually for me personally also to be part of it. It's really along the lines of my Shamba Foundation, which the word Shamba means many hands make light work. It's a Swahili word. And so that's what this is all about. And okay, let her rip. So that's been an amazing cultural experience for us, and I'm really happy that actually personally I've been a big part of it, and I'm really happy to have been a part of it. So what are we going to do? And then I'm going to get to questions. Obviously, the basics here we have to offer. We're going nowhere without. This has sort of become what I think as the low water mark now. Again. Obviously, 90% plus of Canadians are not experiencing this, or 95% of Canadians are not experiencing this today. So it's where we will start. And the most important thing is the last one. Obviously, all of them are critically important, but no catches is so important for making the whole experience simple and enjoyable. I've talked to so many people about this, literally now across the country, and the problem most people talk about right away, obviously many people say it's, I'm so expensive, roaming, long distance, all this is so expensive. You hear that all the time. But mostly what I hear people talk about is it's so confusing and complicated. The experience is the most complicated purchasing experience of anything else I buy. Like as complicated as going to buy a car. Because there's like so many things to consider, and this, that, warranty, lease, 3 years, this, the contract for a mobile phone is like so onerous. It's like a car lease for 3 years. You're into like all these terms and conditions that are so far beyond what the actual value of the product would justify. And when you go to Future Shop and you're going to buy some other electronics, it's not like anywhere near like that. You're going to buy a digital camera, and it has the same like life cycle, a couple of years, and yet the experience of buying it is so much more enjoyable. And the use of it is like as intense as a mobile phone, but it's just a much more enjoyable experience. So we need to make it simple and enjoyable. And I think so starting with all these things, and the last one most importantly is when the customer experience starts to erode is when people start to have, ouch, I opened my bill, ouch. Like, what was that? Don't understand this. Calling the contact center, waiting on hold, going online, trying to understand what we're talking about, as the service provider. Got to kill all that. And it is not easy to do. It would seem easy, on the surface. Well, why not just not have a contract? There are obviously a lot of reasons why you should and need to have a contract as the service provider. And as the customer, there's many protections the contract offers also. The problem, again, is it's not understood and it's confusing and complicated for the size of the item and the dollars we're talking about. Now, I'm sure many people in this room have big cell phone bills, so I don't want to talk about that too much. And then, obviously, we're going to go to some cool, new and innovative things. Person-to-person mobile top-ups is basically you share plans and directly top someone up. We really need an open mobile platform. There's so much going on with development in mobile right now. We need to basically be out there with an open platform, so we will be. Video, music, and movie applications across multiple platforms, so really trying to support as much as we can. Again, logistics limit what we can do, but we're trying to do as much as we can. Full track downloads, and obviously all the usual wallpapers and ringtones. Huge focus on social networking and IM integration for us, because obviously win the power of conversation. We're all about that power of conversation, and community. So social networking and IM integration is a very big focus. Some remote stuff like address book backup and stuff, some things that make the mobile experience better for people. Like right now, it's not so straightforward to not have your contacts lost if you lose your phone or your BlackBerry or whatever. So some stuff like that we can do that's not a very big cost, but again, great customer experience enhancement. And of course, we want to have Wi-Fi and be able to support broadband wherever possible, including on-net broadband with our mobile broadband network. And then a personal, absolute, focus of myself, time I'm putting into is mobile payments. I think this is such an important future area. Obviously, money transfer is tied into it, and I'm personally spending a lot of time on advertising as well. I think that there's a lot of ways that we can be very intelligent about using what is no doubt now the primary screen for people, certainly under 15, under 20. Certainly, the primary screen is the mobile screen. So there's lots of advertising. And that's, advertising is a broad term, so, when you're talking about how it is placed and where it's placed and how and what's the experience and how do younger people interact with advertising versus, people in my generation, et cetera. There's lots of great opportunities there. And near field communication, also just something that I think that we can do a lot with. This is basically where the phone can be near something for the purposes of payment or for the purposes of some kind of data transfer. So it's a low bandwidth but unlicensed methodology of data transfer, much lower bandwidth than Bluetooth, but also very low power. All right, that is it. Please. Yeah, well, Google Voice, so one number service, we've had a one number service in the market for about 5 years now. We were the first in Canada to introduce a one number service we have it in our business offering right now called One Connect. This is where we sell, so we give you one number and you then go online to a web interface and you can program all the routes however you want and put in business rules for yourself, time of day, don't route ever to my home. If this person calls, route it to voicemail. So you can manage all that yourself. So all the functionality that Google Voice is promoting right now that I've seen is actually already in the market. We already have it in the market. It's just not a consumer offering today. And our intention certainly would be to offer it as a consumer offering long term. I think, as with a lot of things, Google, my personal opinion is there's a whole lot of things out there, and then if you look at the financial statements, it's 98% advertising coming from clicks. So there's certainly a lot of noise about what Google Voice might do. I think there's a lot of regulatory issues around that also. Obviously, the telecom companies have a lot at stake when it starts to enter into the net neutrality debate. And anyway, so I think that there's a lot behind that. My view is one number service is critically important for consumers long term, and people ultimately want to unload their landline. And to disconnect the landline, you still want to have a device in your home that you can pick up. So moving that onto digital and having it the same number as your mobile phone is like the first like no-brainer. I think Fido actually might have done a trial with that, or they may actually. I think Fido may actually have that product right now. Not that I want to advertise Fido here, but I think there's a lot of trials going on with that of how to get people having access in their home. But I think part of your point, if I heard you correctly, was also controlling the routes and controlling your experience, having your own auto attendant. Some really cool features that you can go down the road with people having their own answering service, basically, which is pretty cool. Hi. Yeah. Yeah, sure. So the first question was just about like how's the CRTC viewing the debt versus the versus which? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the issue, the decision that the commission issued said that here's some structural things which we want you to address, but which they do in every decision. So that wasn't the unusual thing in this is like usually they'll say yes, but here are the conditions. So this time they said no, and here's what's wrong, and the debt was really the primary issue. Firstly, I think the decision was wrong. I think the decision is unacceptable. I mean, you saying the debt is no good doesn't help us resolve it, right? So where do we go to rectify? So what is acceptable? Especially since how massively the phone companies and cable companies in Canada have been foreign debt backed. It's unbelievable to me that suddenly there's this new there is a line in the sand where it cannot be. Is it the amount of debt? Is it the primary issue they said is, well, there's the foreign creditor is also the foreign shareholder. And that was what they identified as the primary issue. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Our opinion, obviously, is that that doesn't drive control in fact. We offered during the hearing, we offered all kinds of concessions on the debt to make it sort of less, I guess, if you will, with less control parameters or less control levers in it. But that's what the commission basically said was the biggest issue. On your second question, Industry Canada and the DOJ both reviewed the file as part of their approval process, and so that's where the DOJ comes into. No, they're in conjunction. Yeah. So. Industry Canada and the Department of Justice have reviewed and approved our application. Now, they had lots of concerns about control and ownership also, and they made lots of changes as well. And of course, we're saying, obviously, from my perspective, I want the project to be attractive to investors. And so when you start to take away aspects of that, it makes the investment more risky, more onerous for the foreign investor. And so we went through the whole process with Industry Canada, did a comprehensive review. They made all kinds of changes, and ultimately they approved it. Hi. Yeah. Hi.
Phone stands in the aisle, please.
So the question was about the foreign ownership rules. Are they worthwhile? Should we scrap them? This may surprise you to hear me say this, but I actually think the foreign ownership rules are important. I think they're important. They're applied to broadcasting and telecom. So I think they're certainly more important for broadcasting than they are for telecom, except when you start to think about, is there really convergence happening? And will telecom and broadcasting ultimately, if it's the primary screen, well, that's where you're going to watch TV too. That's where you're going to be watching your content. So should we have some ability to protect Canadian heritage, Canadian culture in that? My personal opinion is yes. How that gets implemented, though, is at this point something I'm not satisfied with, something I'm not happy about. And that's really where I think the debate should be focused. That being said, I think the rules are important. Jim, do you want me to only go to the mics, or do you want?
Yeah, could you use the mic, please?
I can repeat the questions also. If it's far for you to walk, I'll just repeat.
Just a quick question on the handset landscape. Moving forward, can you talk a little bit about the handset landscape as you see it now for the new entrants as well as the existing carriers and/or exclusivities with the big three right now?
Yeah. There's a lot in that. So I mean, with respect to the new entrants, I don't have any slides about the new entrants. Obviously, I could talk, ad nauseum about who's positioned where. What do I think about the other new entrants? I think that the other two pure new entrants are going to have a difficulty with handset selection. When I looked at getting into wireless, the most important thing for me was obviously, as I said earlier, to go with the distance, but also being able to leverage scale. This is a business of scale. In order to actually deliver cost-effective offerings well and sustainably, meaning ultimately you have to make money, I believe you have to be able to leverage scale. The incumbents were able to leverage other businesses when they got into wireless. That were heavy cash flow businesses. And this is a business that has a lot of losses up front. So you need an investor that can go the distance, a partner that has a staying power, and you need to be able to leverage scale, in my opinion. So, that was one of the most important things to me when I looked at getting into wireless. So I've got a partner that buys many more handsets than the incumbents combined. And I think that gives us an advantage. I can talk a lot about roadmaps and what I think, what manufacturer is moving up and what manufacturer is starting to lag. I mean, that would be another whole 5-hour discussion. But I think that exclusivity with the incumbents, the ones that still have it, where there is still exclusives, I think those will stop, or those will be wound down as new entrants gain momentum. And I'm not just meaning us, other new entrants. I think that we will have the advantage over other pure new entrants, and I think we will have the advantage over the regional cable companies also, because again, they're starting with zero in wireless today also. Although they have the advantage over the other pure new entrants in that they can leverage cash flows from other businesses. So I don't know if that answers the handset question the gentleman asked earlier. Sorry, but I mean, did you want specifics about what we're talking about offering, or? Yeah. So look, I mean, we're going to have Blackberries, and we're going to have the newest Blackberries, and we're going to have them. Our ability to get them is as good or better than the incumbents. And obviously, we're talking about AWS frequencies, so the frequencies are different than the traditional frequencies. But it's, and there's been a lot of talk about that being a big hurdle. And honestly, there's no impact in cost, immaterial impact in cost to make the radio a little bit more broadband in the chipset on the phone to support the AWS. And so that's absolutely not a factor. But there are not a lot of those handsets out there today. So you have to look at the handset roadmap as, next 1-2 years and then beyond. And AWS is going to obviously really kick into high gear year 2, year 3, year 4, worst case year 3, year 4, year 5. So there's all the same choice of handsets that's available to the incumbents, that have GSM. Obviously, all three of them have GSM now. Is going to be available to us. We're going to start with some great handsets from some of the overseas manufacturers. We're going to, announce a handset list shortly. Actually, the day we're permitted to launch, and it's fantastic. I mean, but I will say here tonight that it's Blackberries for sure, and the newest Blackberries. And there's no, cost disadvantage to AWS for Blackberries. We will not have the iPhone to start, but I don't believe there's any hurdles to us getting the iPhone long term. It comes down to this AWS question. So on the points that I hear most often, I don't know if that answers your question, but on the points I hear most often, the cost, not a factor. 2, timing, yeah, it's going to take us time to catch up, but the only one we have to catch up on is iPhone. The other ones, there's all kinds of Nokia smartphones, Samsung smartphones, Ericsson phones, Motorola, that are all, the latest version of in 2G and 3G.
Okay, so there's a lot of sensitive data that passes through the network. So I'm just curious on WIN's philosophy when it comes to protecting that data for the consumers.
It's a hugely important issue, and I don't even think we've touched scratched the surface about where that's going to go. And I actually, you remember I had a slide here that I was talking about mobile payments. Obviously, when you start talking about access to people's bank accounts, it becomes increasingly important. So I actually, obviously we have all kinds of policies in this area, And we've made it. We have a department focused on this, and we have a lot of policies in this area. So officially, I think we're relatively well prepared, and we'll be as good as the incumbents, or better. But I think that there's the thing that concerns me the most about this issue is what has yet to come that we don't know about. It's going to come, and for sure, we're not going to have the right protections in place. So I think it's going to be a question of focus on responsiveness, speed to address it when there is some kind of breach, some kind of hack, some kind of breach, some kind of theft. It's how do we actually have the organization be flexible enough and nimble enough, and the network be software enough to be able to deal with that issue. Oh, that's a good question. I don't think so. That's a good question, though. I don't, no. The issue was, because there's been lots of foreign investors, and as I said in telecom before, I think this issue, they said there's just a foreign creditor is the same as the foreign shareholder, and so, they don't like that. But there was never any discussion during the hearing, which is all on the public record, by the way, about their concern to do with it being a foreign investor. So operationally, though, I think that because everyone is moving on to mobile, and transactions are going to start happening. Obviously, there's confidential, sensitive data. Today, that's true. That's been true for several years. But when we start getting into transactions, it becomes, and it's going to get, there is going to be theft, there is going to be fraud, there is going to be hacks, and we just have to be operationally able to deal with them aggressively, fast. So, we do have vendor dependencies, and that's, to me, a significant business risk. Those vendor dependencies are inherent in the marketplace. But it's also something where I think that the industry should be collaborative on, which I don't think will happen anytime soon. I'm saying there isn't a utopia, but the only way to really put pressure on the hardware manufacturers and the equipment manufacturers is basically if all of the vendors and if all of the carriers in that country say we're not going to support this device anymore, we're not going to support this type of equipment anymore until this problem is fixed. That's going to cause movement. But if we have a certain release and ABC carrier has a certain release of that, and if we're not coordinated, it's going to take longer, and we're going to be calling out of the blue. Yes. 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 Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think all the attacks you see on IP networks are going to happen. Denial of service attacks, Trojan horse attacks. I mean, every attack that happens in the internet world is going to happen on mobile. And I think it's going to happen worse because mobile is more open in many ways. So I'm not sure if I should, go ahead. Yeah. I'll go here and then there. So the question was, how is our approach to application different? Yeah. Well, look, I think it's a philosophical approach, in that we want it to be open. And I say recognizing, and this gentleman's raised a very important concern, that is where do you draw the line? There are all kinds of protocols out there and all kinds of ways this could be implemented to provide the most flexible platform for third party, and also the most flexible platform, by the way, for our own internal use as well. Obviously, we think we can have better control about our own internal application development. And you get into this question of should you develop some kind of core application, a player, and then permit development on that player, or should you just say, here's the ability to put your own player, create your player. So where do you draw the line with this open platform is a big part of the question as well. Obviously, the hardware manufacturers now, RIM's trying to obviously catch up to Apple and the iStore. Obviously, there's a lot of vetting going on, but it still doesn't stop us from having an attack happen, whether malicious or inadvertent, by the platform being too open. So I don't have an answer for you right now, except to say that operationally we're trying to make sure that we are very aggressively able to react when a problem does happen. But our goal is to have the goal is a community build a conversation, and applications build a conversation, right? So the goal is to have it absolutely as open as possible. As few rules as possible. I'm just going to go to the
Yeah, I'm just...
Sorry, actually, you know what? I'll go to that one because I haven't... I'm actually not sure. Who's been standing longer?
No problem. No.
Okay, whoever's been standing longer, I'm so sorry.
All right, I've been a customer with 3 carriers,
Yeah.
and my problem with each one was the customer service.
Yeah.
I talk to somebody and he doesn't understand what I'm saying. He doesn't understand. He leaves me on the phone for 2 hours and he doesn't solve my problem. Then I cut it and I pay the fee and I go to a different carrier. Then he has the same problem. I go to Rogers, he has the same problem. I go to Fido, the same problem. It's been years like that. So how is Wind's going to be different in this? This is actually what's going to make me move from my carrier right now to Wind. What would be the difference? Because usually they're call centers. They have no clue what am I talking about.
Yeah.
So what's Wind going to do for that?
Well, I mean, firstly, I think it's critically important. First, let's recognize that, as I said earlier, the incumbents have very large companies they're trying to run, and they have legacy businesses. They have a lot of complexity that makes it difficult to manage their customer base. I believe, anyway. So I'm not as down on them, personally, as some Canadians are. For Wind, though, what's critically important is that we build, and why I was so happy about one of the reasons I was so happy about the Random Acts of Kindness initiative is that we build the culture of the company from the ground up about the customer experience. Because we have 0 customers today. So if we don't make you feel like your business matters to us, you're going to immediately just put us in they're just like the other 3, and we're done. Because the other 3 can afford to exchange customers between the 3 of them.
Yeah.
They can afford to churn between the 3 of them. We have 0. So we're done. We might as well close the doors now if we don't talk to you and engage you as an important customer. So we're trying to do it, where I believe we are doing it, from Wireless Soapbox. We started there. We took in all this input. I would argue we have more actual input from Canadians about what they care about in wireless than any of the big 3 that are operating. I mean, unless they're recording call center, calls and recording stuff, we're actually getting stuff, posts online, thousands and thousands and thousands of posts. Here's what I want to see. Here's what's wrong. Here's what happened to me now. We're getting it, and we've created a system to take all that in, sort it, and actually affect business rules based on what we hear. So it's not about necessarily what you as an individual think is you're an input, and if we get an input from everyone else in this room, we're going to get a direction of what's important to Canadians from that. But I believe, personally, we have to make your business important to us. And I just say, as a matter of fact, it is, because we are at 0 today.
So my question would be, is there going to be a policy for that, or after? Because it's a startup right now, you're starting, so the service is going to be good. So
Yes.
is there going to be a policy going, or
Yes.
that's going to be just for the first 2 years, everything is good, and
Then we got you. And then we're just like everybody else. No, I mean, look obviously the company's already got 800 people. It's already not a small company, and so it is very challenging to maintain a culture of innovation, a culture of customer focus with that many people, and we're going to have more people than that. I believe we've got a great foundation from where we started with Soapbox and we created the conversation on windmobile.ca. I believe we've created a great, kernel there. But obviously, if we don't reinforce it and we're not committed to it long term, it's very easy for us just to become another big carrier. I mean, that's way easier. The harder route is to maintain what we have today. So it requires. It's not something though that I would say to you. It's not something where a light goes off and someone says, "Oh, well, that's good. We got them now. So now we can start being crap service." It's iterative. It's small decisions are made. A lot of smart people get together. They say, the saying goes, right? Everyone's smart as an individual, but they get together and they make stupid decisions. So, there's a lot of little decisions made that can get the company off course. And then you wake up one day and you're way off course. So what we have to do is not let the little 1 degree course, off course things happen, and keep it on course. I mean, I'm sort of speaking figuratively now, but that's, for me, like the only thing that really matters to making this company Obviously, there's execution risk building network, but we have the scale, we have all the experience of our ASCOM, we have all the operating experience of Globalive in Canada, 10 years of building a company. So we know how to execute in telecom. But how do we become a company that people actually want to do business with? Because I would bet that most people in this room don't want to do business with their current carrier. That's the stats say. That's what the statistics are. Highest customer dissatisfaction of any wireless market out there. So you hit right on. The reason I just went so long there is you hit right on the core issue, and I don't have all the answers, but please.
Thank you. I can tell you that I'd like to see some competition in the market.
Thank you.
I'm sure that you all would too, but I go back to the app question, and that seems to be the way other carriers are differentiating today. Maybe you could talk a little deeper on the strategy of what you guys are going to do in terms of either app stores or branded stores or branded suite of stuff that you're going to bring to market.
Yeah, I think the answer is it's, again, not something where we just think we take one step and we've reached sort of a panacea. It's similar to the customer experience question. It's an iterative thing where we've got to be investing in that area on an ongoing basis. If we just come out, we're going to come out obviously with a hip and cool offering, and the App Store concept is going to be prevalent in everything that we do. Whether we have our own store or not is another question. But then I don't want to talk about specifics on that tonight. But suffice to say, it's going to be a very cool offering to start. So we're going to have a cool offering out there, but that doesn't make our business successful. We have to, again, continue to invest in that area so we continue to enhance the customer experience. And from a policy, if I can talk conceptually for a second, for our approach to it is going to be to have it, how do we make it as open as possible and encourage as much innovation and creativity on our platform as possible while maintaining the obvious threshold of personal security and privacy and so on. That's where the direction we're going in. And as you know, online right now, there's all kinds of carriers, there's all kinds of iterations of that out in the marketplace already today. And some things are being done very well, some things are being not so well done so well in our opinion. So we're going to take a first cut at what we think is going to be, what we think will be market leading, and then we have to continue to invest in it. I'm sorry I can't give you more specifics than that right now, but that's as a direction, that's where we're going. Hi.
Hi. So I got a couple of questions for you. I'll try to be succinct. The first one has to do with policy just in general. I mean, I know obviously you spent a lot of time being compliant. In Industry Canada opinion, you are compliant, so I understand why you don't want to emphasize this part so much, but I politely disagree with your view on opening foreign investment. Let me just elaborate a little bit. If you look at other, G20.
You disagree with the view that we should open it or not open it?
No, we should open.
Oh, you think? So you don't.
No,
okay,
no. I know you're compliant, so that's why I don't understand strategically why you don't even want to go there, because you spent all this time trying to play by the rules and all this. So that's why you rather not even touch that too much, because as far as Industry Canada is concerned, you are compliant.
Okay. You said it, not me.
Yeah. Well, Industry Canada said it, and Tony Clement said it here last week when he said it was a subjective decision. It was not quote unquote the law. It was a subjective decision. But my question to you is as follows. I mean, I'm looking at countries like UK, for instance, where you had Vodafone, you had O2, which was a spin-out of BT Cellnet, which later got acquired by Telefonica, foreigner. You have Tree Hutch, which is, again, Asian interests, foreigner. You have Orange, which bought T-Mobile, again, foreigner. And you have a vibrant market in the UK. They're highly penetrated, they're very competitive. And not only that, I would argue even that the sole British player that they have is a much better, much more active player because of that competition inside their own country, which makes them be forced to go out and look for other opportunities elsewhere in the world, which makes Vodafone a global player. Now I'm looking at Canada, I'm saying we have this really very antiquated, it's an anachronism, this policy of blocking out foreign investment in telecoms. I'm the principal telecom analyst at Frost & Sullivan. I did some research to find out telecom regulation in other countries, and I found out that Canada is in fact in very good company as far as foreign ownership rules. There's Burma, also known as Myanmar, North Korea, Iran. We're in good company. And by the way,
I think you should just come up here.
North Korea, actually, they relaxed the rules, and guess who was knocking on their door? OTH. They actually have 75% interest there. So my question to you is, is this really serving Canada in your view? Because really, I'm looking at our teledensity, and yes, I seen Ken's piece on the National Post, and I know he got away with the SIM stuff, but I could give CDMA countries like Brazil and Mexico that had legacy CDMA, and they're also more, so there's no SIM argument there, and they're also more highly penetrated than we are. So has this really served Canada in the long term? Because we know there's a positive, a positive correlation between GDP growth and.
I got it. I totally understand what you're saying. And I have to say, that is definitely, you've hit all the sides of the argument that are, saying why don't we open this thing up? I'd just like to add to what you said though is, remember we were successful at raising a commitment of $700 million from a foreign investor. So the rules as they are now do not block foreign investors. In fact, the telecom companies and cable companies have been heavily financed by foreign debt and foreign equity. The interpretation of those rules applied by the CRTC in this instance was not correct, in my opinion. In our opinion. WIN's opinion, Globalive's opinion. But the CRTC had the discretion to say, yes, but here are your conditions. And they felt that the debt was, I guess, because I don't really know. And I don't know, obviously I have no visibility beyond what's in the public record about what's going on, what deliberations happened. It truly was a very transparent process. There was no, and so, I'm with you that you can make the argument certainly that we should open it up. I would just say that though that not having it open did not stop Globalive from raising foreign capital and entering this auction and being a very aggressive bidder. So it is possible. The question is how do we, potentially, there's different views on how you can go forward with these. But my point is that we don't need to get into a policy debate or a policy review to launch wind. We're ready to go and bring real choice to Canadians, and that's the most important thing from our standpoint. We need to get out in the marketplace and offer an actual, real, sustainable, long-term choice. There's no squeezing us out. There's no marginalizing us. We've got the staying power to be there for the long term. We're going to change the industry. We're ready to go.
Thank you.
I got to move on. I got to take this film. Sorry, man. I got to. Thank you, though. Thank you for the support. Hi. So the question is, like in a nightmare, are we going to shut down and not launch? Absolutely. We're not going to give up. I've been fighting with the incumbents for 10 years since I started the business in a lot of different ways. Obviously, this is the first time that Globalive has ever been a real threat, a real material threat. So obviously, the incumbents are rightly concerned. But we're not going to give up. And I have to say, I have to commend my partner very much, Mr. Sawiris and our ASCOM, because I think any institutional investor right now would have been spooked by now. Let's get real. There's so much regulatory uncertainty, and yet they're still fully backing wind, Globalive, and therefore wind. So no, we're not going to give up. We're going to be out there 100%. Just a question of when, and hopefully as soon as possible. Hi. Yeah, we don't have enough distribution points right now in our view, and we want to control the experience early on because this whole question of customer experience is so important for us to get out of the gate. I personally don't believe that Fido ever really recovered from the initial perception in 96, 97 that it was not quite as good, even though in many ways their network was way better. It was not quite as good as the big guys, and I think that hurt them from ever getting business customers. Okay, this is all speculation. I have no hard data on this, but I think there's that perception in business decision makers' mind, and obviously long term we want to be selling to business customers. We have 5,000 small business customers now. We want to sell them wireless long term, medium term, ideally short term. But when we're ready, we want to control that. We want to control that experience. So we're starting with our own stores and the kiosks, and then we're going to expand into resellers and other distribution points from there. But I don't believe we have enough. That's okay also though, because again, the worst thing that can happen is we screw up provisioning your phone, and then you're going to tell 5 friends right away. It was actually easier to go to Rogers. That's like the worst thing that could happen to us. Hi, sorry, whoever was waiting longer back there. Hi.
Yep. Knowing that you've got approval from Industry Canada, your network's ready, and the marketplace is ready, what's preventing you from, say, screw it, we're going to offer the market our service tomorrow? What are the legal what are the legal things that are holding you back?
I like the way you think.
Like, why don't you offer us something tomorrow?
You got to call me tomorrow. Let's talk.
What are the major roadblocks that are holding you back right now?
Well, first of all, so there's always kind of cute ways around things, but we need a long-term positive relationship with the CRTC and a long-term positive relationship with Industry Canada. In order to make our business successful and be around for the long term, we need to build those relationships, at all levels of those organizations, meaning the CRTC and Industry Canada, over the long term. So we've been totally cooperative and compliant with every step of the way, every step of the review process, and doing our best to, again, under the scrutiny of the first ever public telecom review, continuing to be fully cooperative and comply with all the concerns, make changes very quickly to comply with all the concerns. And so the last thing kind of we want to do right now is kind of now, say, well, hey, sorry, now we're just going to stick it to you and start selling phones or something. We can't do that. There are obviously, and I've gotten tons of posts and emails about this. Why don't you do this? You could just do this. Why don't you just sell it under the Axe brand, whatever. Lots of Canadians have lots of ideas on how we could do that, but the answer is it's not, that's a short-term hit for not a real long-term solution where we need a positive relationship with those organizations. Yes?
I have a question about devices. I know you said you're going to catch up within year 2 and 3 with different cell phones and different providers. But what about things beyond cell phones and smartphones? What about things like netbooks? On top of my head, things like the Amazon Kindle. My laptop has a 3G modem. Like Rogers, Fido offer like the USB 3G modem stick. Are you planning to do any of that?
Yeah.
And if you are, and if you are, how would that translate with what you're trying to do with unlimited data plans? Because if you're offering an unlimited data plan, then why do I need my home internet?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we can't. So we want to get you on home internet on our DSL. Obviously, that's an offering we can offer more cost effectively using the fixed line infrastructure. To answer your question about other, obviously we want to expand our product offering. Again, it's about doing this in a way that's orderly and we deliver well on. If we don't deliver well, you sort of have, the expression is true, you have one chance to make a first impression, right? So if we get out in the marketplace, no matter how cute our hot dog ads are, like if it's not working for you properly and you're not having a better experience, not just about your bill, a simpler, better experience than with your current provider, we're not going to be able to be. We're in that same game long term. We don't have a great company. So,
but in terms of
so we're going to offer the stick. We're going to offer the stick to start, and then we're going to expand devices and have support for those devices in a controlled roadmap that we can deliver well on. But we will
offer unlimited data on USB sticks, for example.
I'm sorry.
Will you still offer unlimited data?
Yeah, we are going to offer. There is options for.
How do you handle the bandwidth?
Very, very high data buckets. Yeah. I'm not going to use the word unlimited for data right now, but very, very, basically we're not going to let ourselves be abused.
Right.
Okay? But as long as, it's normal usage.
Thank you.
Okay. You've mentioned up front that you don't want to have any catches in any contracts, and the unlimited question just came up there. I'm wondering, when you set yourself such a high bar for knowing that this is going to have to become an ARPU business, on a razor-thin margin industry anyway, can you speak a little bit about some of the things you plan to offer consumers with respect to maybe specifically your music strategy that will differentiate you from the incumbents enough to make people aware that this is worth sticking around with in a time of number portability and once the allure of no contracts maybe wears off a bit?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's definitely, surprisingly, but definitely seems to be a very interesting trend developed where consumers are actually, consumer customers, and it's yet to be seen for business customers, but consumer customers are prepared to pay for, you use the example of music, and it doesn't seem to be a big emotional or financial resistance there to actually having pay per use in content or pay per download content. So I don't actually think that we're going to have a problem with music specifically in terms of generating ARPU. But you referred earlier, your first question or first comment was about how do you set the bar so high, and that is a big concern. It's a very, very, very good question. And one of the things I'm concerned about in our business is that okay, so and you can see it online if you read some of the posts on Win Mobile. Like, we're not going to save. We're not saviors. We are a business too, and we have to make money long term as well, or we're not going to be around. I just think that we have to get out of the gate differentiating ourselves and building our culture in a way that is sustainably different, where the customer experience is, in any way we can do it, long-term part of it. I don't have the answers today of how we're going to be, customer focused when we have 2 million subs. I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that if we have people that think about that as an important thing, not people that are, just process driven, that are just, automatons, pound out this order and, see you later type people. If people are thinking, and people are thinking in a way that, and then that they have some mechanism to act on what they saw or what they thought. Hey, this customer just had this happen. How do we improve our business to close that, gap? That's how we survive in a high. But talking about the other new entrants, I don't know how you are a pure new entrant without the benefit of scale as a partner, and strategic partner that can actually bring that solves the scale question. If you're fighting the scale problem where you've got 3 big incumbents and you don't have the same buying power as them, plus you're trying to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, I don't know how you do it. Hi.
Yeah, so last year when you were here, you were proposing that the incumbents, as you call them, would be changing their service plans to prepare themselves for the open competition coming from you guys. In your perspective, what have they done to change their plans over the last year?
Well, they certainly have taken action on system access fees. They've done some repackaging of system access fees or eliminating system access fees. There's obviously been a massive marketing push of Kudo. And rebirth of Solo in a significant way. The $15 plan emerged in the last 12 months. We haven't seen that since 2002 or something. So I think a lot has happened. And I would say probably the smartest thing that I've seen happen is that in the higher end business customers, even individual, what would be sort of a business user, $200, $300 plus customer, there's proactive calls going from the incumbents to those customers saying, hey, we really appreciate your business. Can we give you a new phone? Can we sign you up again for another 3 years, on this better plan? So there's a proactive reach out, which is, something that if I was in their shoes, I would definitely be all over that too. Get that 5%, 7%, 8% of the market that's very high ARPU, and make sure that Win isn't able to penetrate that very easily. So I think the incumbents have, they're very, as I've said the whole way through, I always get asked I always sort of get leading questions to bash the incumbents, but I never, because they're running great companies. They're very profitable, very well-run companies. They don't have any pressure on them like we can bring, and pressure will cause the industry to shake up. But just scratching the surface with like a little new entrant, that's not, or scratching the surface with Kudo, Fido, Solo, Virgin, just that's not hitting the core meat of the market where the real structural problems are. Hi.
Organizational behavior question if you want to answer.
Yep.
You go out and you build an organization in 6 months. There's a finite number of talent, wireless talent around here. So you hire probably a lot of people that are coming from the incumbent. And you put them together.
It's a great question.
And how do you make them
differently this time? Yeah. That's a great question. So the question was, realistically, you need, in order to be able to actually do this business, you need to hire people that know about the wireless industry. Well, obviously, to know about the wireless industry, they have to have experience from one of the incumbents. So how do you get people from the incumbents, put them together, and then not have yourself become an incumbent? It's a great question, and it's a massive challenge. That being said, I think that if you walked around in the Wind office, you'd feel an energy and a drive that's very unique in the marketplace today. Can we sustain that is another challenge. Can we maintain that is another challenge. But right now we have, and now with this, from this random acts of kindness, people have united in a way that is unprecedented, to have an entire company in local communities doing local, contributing to communities is unprecedented. So, in such a wide scale. So, we have a culture that's developing, or is developed, and is continuing to develop to be very strong, very focused on innovation, customer entrepreneurial spirit, and the customer experience. So I think we've got a real lead now, and I don't think people are bringing the baggage that you think they might bring with them. They are bringing a lot of experiences. They are bringing a lot of, this is what we did, and what we think we did wrong, so we could have done better, and we have a lot of ideas. But we're getting a ton of ideas from Canadians too. At the end of the day, my view is the person that's going to pay our bill is the person we got to be listening to. So we're taking the input from Canadians, but it doesn't detract from the fact that what you're asking is one of the biggest organizational challenges we don't have yet, that we will have, though, absolutely. That's a great question. And I don't really have the answer to it right now. Yep.
Great, thanks. So as I look at the Canadian market, and I think I read an article about this not too long ago as well that said, Canadians are very contract dependent, right? We're used to spending, a friend of mine will say, I spent $100 for my phone.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, you just paid $2,500 for that phone, right? 3-year contract. And you talked about no contracts.
Yeah.
So, and you also spoke about the latest BlackBerry devices. Those are $600 devices from RIM. How are you going to play that scenario? Yeah. And what role might mobile advertising play in that scenario?
That's a great question. So, the answer is, it's obviously we have to have a business model that works and that people can access. So it doesn't work for us not to be able to. Obviously, if we're trying to sell a device for $800, or $600, or $400 for that matter, you wipe out the majority of your potential customers right there. So we have a number of different ways we're trying to look at addressing that. From some free service months potentially, something like that. And again, that's not definitive. We're just looking at ways that we can basically talk about the whole economic package. To your point, is that that's what people lose sight of. I got the phone for free. Well, no, you're just going to get killed now for 3 years. So you didn't get anything for free. But you're right that incumbents have been very good at structuring the market that way. That's one of the other structural problems in the market, frankly. I mean, the duopolies is the most powerful market force at work, in my opinion. But clearly the consumer education is a big hurdle, and we can't just come in the market and change consumer. We're not going to change people's mentality overnight, if ever. Unless we turn out to be Steve Jobs level marketers, we're not going to change the way people think about things. That's something we could aspire to, maybe. But I think that it's a good question, and it's a challenge. It is an ongoing issue. But the way to do it is basically, how do we talk about the whole economic package? How do we talk about the whole economic package so that you're saving money while still getting the benefit of the latest and greatest devices?
Thanks.
Please.
Hi. A little bit of a follow-on from your last question. Yeah. As an average consumer that is expecting the world from Globalive based on media, next year I've got a 3-year contract. What draws me from whichever carrier I'm with to Globalive? Mm-hmm. And what do you see? You get your Christmas gift, Globalive goes live as a carrier Jan 1. What does next year look like for you guys in terms of return?
Mm-hmm. That's great. So obviously, December, Christmas is the biggest sales month, so obviously we're very unhappy that we're missing that. And we were going to launch, we had already been in the market. So we've definitely been hurt by the CRTC decision in that respect. This delay has hurt us. On the other hand, it's also allowed us to strengthen the network, a lot as well, and strengthen the culture, as I alluded to. I think that the most important thing that new entrants are going to bring, which they already have brought to the earlier gentleman's comment about what's changed in the last year. Already, I think the whole customer experience that the incumbents are offering is improving. And then that's the reality that at all levels they're talking about more cost-effective offerings. They're talking about more handsets. They're talking about look at they're all a GSM now. I don't know how much longer they would have waited to go to GSM. if there wasn't a Globalive coming, if there wasn't the other new entrants coming, the cable companies that are dominant in their footprints, Quebecor and Shaw. So I think that we collectively as new entrants have already had a material impact in the customer experience for people that are already using cell phones from one of the existing carriers. And I think that the most attractive thing for you as a consumer now is you really are going to have a lot of choice the next time you go. Obviously, we missed you for the 3 years. I don't know why you signed a 3-year contract, but why don't you sign 1 year?
As an example, I mean,
yeah.
you have a public out there. Yeah. The vast majority are committed to contracts.
Right, but they're rotating
as well.
Right, that's the nature of those contracts. They're revolving, right? If everyone was on a 36-month contract, then every month, 1 out of 36, there'd be that amount of the market turning over every month, 3%, 4% turning over every month. Right. So, but not everyone's on 3% contracts. Obviously, it's a lot greater percentage than that. The market's turning over quickly. The market's turning over surprisingly quickly for what is actually going on. But the carriers are trying now to basically renew those longer-term contracts, obviously, to lock you up longer. The answer is, as a consumer, you're going to have the choice of a lot of, in the early days of competition here, you're going to have a choice of a lot of different players. And then it's going to consolidate to 4 players long term.
Thanks.
But the market will be different. In 5 years, the market will be different. Hi.
It's kind of a funny segue because quick story and then a question. I was at a corporate retreat shortly after they did the CRTC announcement, and I was talking to a senior executive at my former company who's now left the country, left the industry. Anyhow, I asked him, what do you think about this? So they're going to open it up to new entrants, the CRTC auction, they're going to set some aside. What do you think? And he said, man, it's going to be great. These guys are going to set up shop, they're going to bleed like hell, we're going to get them and their spectrum on the cheap, and we're going to love it. And you say the 5-year thing, and he said it's going to take 5 years. And I think you're in it for the long haul, and I believe that truly and honestly, and seeing what I've seen, I think that's probably the case. But the other two, maybe not the case. What do you think of the other two as far as what their actual strategy is in the industry long term? Do you think it's going to be a 4-horse race, not a 5 or a 6?
Yeah.
So what's going to happen to these 5
When you say the other two, do you mean the cable companies or the pure new entrants?
I mean the two full new entrants, yeah.
Okay, because the cable companies are going to be around.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
They're very strong companies.
Yeah.
And, Quebecor is an incredible convergence. I mean, they dominate the media landscape in Quebec also. So they're extremely well positioned for Quebec, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why we didn't continue to bid up Quebec.
It's a tough landscape in Quebec too. You
Very much so. Well, we have Yak customers
there. It's a whole
there.
big pain in the butt. Yeah.
Look, we have Yak customers there. We have 200,000 Yak household customers there. It's a very difficult market. We're in that market. It's a very, very, very difficult market.
Better to partner.
To answer your question about how the new entrants, my answer would start with who is backing the new entrants, the pure new entrants. Globalive. I don't even think we're a pure new entrant because we have all of our national existing customer base, but call us for a second a pure new entrant. The other guys are clearly startups. We're backed by a long-term strategic player, wireless operator, the 9th largest in the world currently and growing. They're backed by private equity that has, by definition of their business, a horizon.
Yeah. So I think they're going to end
I'd start right there and saying what type of player is likely to be around long term. Also, I have a track record already of 10 years building. I mean, I've had lots of opportunities to sell the company.
Yeah.
I keep rolling it and keep hitting it, keep building it. And so there's a great alignment in our partnership, which I think is why the incumbent spends so much time making sure that is trying to slow us down. I mean, there's a great alignment between myself and Mr. Suiris. In terms of our view of how this has to be done. This is a 7, 9, 10, 15-year business. This is not 3 years, 5 years.
So let's just say that in the near term, we've got you and 2 other new entrants that are trying to make a dash in the marketplace kind of thing. You got 2 of them that are kind of making a mad dash for 5 years to get as many people as they can to make themselves as big as they can to sell it for as much as they can and cash out hardcore. I mean, how are you going to sort of in the very near terms position yourselves against people that are prepared to just bleed for 5 years and not really turn anything?
Well, my question is, how could do you think that they will be able to?
I don't know. Because I think back and I think, well,
5 years. I mean, look at the investors that are in those companies. I'd urge you to look at the profile of the investors. They're very smart investors, also.
Yeah.
But they are private equity investors, but they're very smart investors. They're not going to bleed foolishly.
No.
So
I hope not. I just think back to back before the microcell or Fido sell it to Rogers, they did the city Fido, mad dash, get as many people on contract as possible. Maybe we'll go to TELUS, maybe we'll go to Rogers, who cares, right? We'll get a lot of customers now. But the $45 unlimited plan was a big time loser in the industry at the time. You couldn't make money on it. So anyhow, I'm figuring maybe something like that will happen. I don't know, who knows? Anyhow, thanks for talking. Cheers.
Okay, one more question, and I'm done. Please.
I'm a Rogers customer, so I locked into their 3 years contract.
I'm sorry.
I'm willing to kind of hit first one when the client will be your customer. And,
Oh, I see. Are you asking me if economically you would be? No, I think that once you're committed to an agreement, I think that you should live with that. Off the top of my head, I mean, I have no idea what the terms of your contract are, but paying, yeah, $400. I mean, that's a big hurdle. Are you asking me to give you a free phone? Well, I can't help you anyway then. You have an iPhone. I'm not going to have the iPhone. The iPhone's not AWS ready for a while. Yeah. Yeah, no, but are we allowed to say jailbreaking here? Jim? Jim's not even paying attention. He's done. He's talking about jailbreaking his iPhone, and I was thinking, you know what, that's not maybe nothing you want to have on Mobile Monday. No, it won't operate because the frequencies are not compatible. The iPhone does not support AWS right now. So the frequency range, the frequency range is off for, anyway, it won't work. Well, I guess I could sign you up, but I'd have to be like, we worked on roaming agreements to have our network full, so you'd be roaming, which would not be good for us. All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Tony, for joining us.
Great, thank you.
We'd like to point out as well that, again, this is the second time you spoke with our community here, and you're big on community, which is awesome. And based on the registrations and the attendance, this has probably been the largest mobile networking event in Canada for 2009. So we wanted to thank you for that. And as a token, a little bit of vino there, and maybe you can use that to toast when you hopefully get...
Send it to the CRTC.
There you go. Hopefully when you get approved in market. So thanks very much.
Good luck, Tony.
Good, thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.